Black Hills Information Security, the leaders in penetration testing and active defense. Email consulting@blackhillsinfosec.com to request a quote today. Threat Connect is the industry's most widely adopted threat intelligence platform, built to unite the people, processes, and technologies across your security team, your organization, and your entire ecosystem of partners. Threat Connect's threat intelligence platform enables your team to collaborate, analyze, and make sense of threat data all in one place. Empower your team towards fast and efficient analysis that leads to decisive action. Transform your entire threat detection and response program today. Claim your free account at threatconnect.com/securityweekly. Welcome back, everyone, to Security Weekly. Mr. Joff Thayer has the tech segment for this evening. He's going to be talking about MSF Venom.
Hey, hello. Yeah, okay, so no messing around. Paul's just jumping right into it.
I'm jumping right into it. That's it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try to share screen here and put some couple of slides up really quick, and we're gonna talk about MSF Venom. Wow, you got the freaky what do you call it?
There you go. That works though.
Slideshow. Here we go. Play from start. There we go. MSF Venom tidbits.
Awesome.
Okay, we
hold on.
seeing
We'll
that
take
okay?
the lower third off there, and so we can see all your screens. Yeah, you had some really cool tips and tricks for people.
Yeah.
Go for it, Joff.
Can you see the slideshow okay?
I can, yes.
Excellent. So this is gonna jump straight into it, but okay, so here's the context. Well, let me back up a little bit. Here's the context. So I was playing around with MSF Venom the other day. It's sort of what's old is new again. I know so many people have moved on to PowerShell, right? It's the magic post-exploitation framework, and they're using it for all of their stages and anything that essentially delivers malware to the desktop. But I was still looking at the context of executable files because they haven't lost their shine depending on how you do things. And I was looking at it from the context of antivirus evasion, which so many of us do when we're doing penetration tests, right? And I was also looking at it in the 64-bit context. And here's the interesting thing. When you get into 64 bits, in terms of binary executable content, unfortunately, the antivirus engines don't do as well in 64 bits. And it's always kind of baffled me because the world has really moved 64-bit. So having said that, the first slide I've got here is a slide of the assembly code template that the Metasploit framework uses for the 64-bit executable standard template when you build a 64-bit payload in MSF Venom. And the interesting thing about this is the old template here still has this string of payload in it with a 4K buffer. The way that MSF Venom used to work, as I understand it, is that it would scan the template executable, look for this payload string here. If it found the payload string, it would then subsequently copy the shellcode payload into all of the bytes following that payload string identifier, and then execute that payload. And so this assembly code essentially allocates the memory, copies the payload up, and executes the payload as a very, very simple process, right? And if you look at the actual original Metasploit template that's in the user share Metasploit framework data templates directory in Kali, you can see that that payload string is still contained within that original template. And so that makes the job for any endpoint defenses fairly easy, right? I mean, at minimum, you just have to see this payload string in the executable, and you're in pretty good shape. You can tell that this is a Metasploit payload, right? So everybody quickly learned that, well, won't go to the next slide yet, but everybody quickly learned that the idea was to use alternate templates, right? What is old is new again, in Metasploit with the -X flag in MSF Venom. But when I was experimenting the other day, I stumbled upon the couple of different formats. One of them is the standard exe. So here you can see me generating a payload with MSF Venom. It's a reverse TCP payload, and it's using write .exe from a Windows box, which is write underscore x64.exe, so it's a 64-bit binary. And I'm creating this exe and I'm outputting it to a file. Okay, that's all good and well. There's an alternative format, which is exe only. This is the same kind of command line here in this next slide. We use MSF Venom. We go ahead and generate our reverse TCP. But instead of using exe, we use exe only. And I got to the point of going, well, what's different about this? They're both 64-bit executable files with a shellcode payload in them. Why does this exe only option actually exist? So I looked a little deeper and I went into this little utility that I found online from Cerebro, or Cerebro, I don't know quite how you say that, Cerebro, I think, which just examines PE-COF files, okay? And I pulled up the structure of the PE-COF file for the standard exe output using my template. It doesn't matter if the template's there or not. But pulling up the structure of the standard exe format, you can see what MSF Venom is doing. Rather than using this format where it's copying the shellcode after the payload string, it's actually adding a new section header to the PE-COF file and then changing the code entry point to hex offset 6000 in this case, so that it calls the shellcode directly. Okay, so the exe is not too surprising. It's not using that old payload format. Instead, it's just going ahead and adding this new section header. So it turns out that the old template in MSF Venom is actually a bit of an artifact and, well, let's just say not very useful, because you can use any executable template. So, and it will add this extra section. But without further ado, has anybody got questions on that in our illustrious panel?
I do not.
Okay. So moving on, I'm going to keep this really short, Paul. Moving on, I then created the same output using this brand new exe only format. And lo and behold, what I discovered is instead of adding a new section to the PE-COF file, what MSF Venom does is it actually modifies the existing .text section, which is normally where executable code exists inside a PE-COF image, and it just changes the code entry point to, again, point to the shellcode, but it's actually overwriting a portion of the existing code in that executable, okay? One of the differences that I do notice here in this little examination is that the characteristics of the section header are actually slightly changed from the original. If you notice in my last slide, up here in the .text section, the characteristics start with 6. It's a 6000020, right? And then the new section has this E00020. In the next slide, we see the exe only section modifying the .text section to E00020. So that's another interesting little artifact here on the output. When you look at the output and look closely at those characteristics, what you find out is that extra binary flag is actually setting the section header as writable. Now, I didn't look at the Ruby code awfully too closely, but I suspect what's happening here is the fact that it's setting it to writable here with that extra flag means that the second stage in the code is probably coming down into that same segment and landing inside that area of memory, so it has to be writable in order to receive it. So not only did this show me like two different formats in terms of potential evasion, it also showed me different ways that I can detect Metasploit payloads based on the different flags in the section headers. And with that discussion, we get into things like Yara, where we're going to write actual detection code using things that look at like the PE module and look at different flags in the PE module and PE-COF headers, right? So that's the end of the show. Now, having said that, I generated a couple of these payloads, dropped them on my Windows malware training machine here, and here I've got 4 different variants. 2 of them are encoded with standard XOR encoding in the MSF Venom project, and 2 of them are not encoded. In every single case, they're using write.exe as the template, so you can see that the icon is kind of an indicator of that. on this machine, and I'm not necessarily picking on Avast, but I've got Avast installed, and as you can see, just by the fact that these things exist, Avast's real-time protection is not even blinking at the fact that these things are here.
Sweet.
Just to show you the execution, here's our interpreter session opening after I click on one of them, and everything's just copacetic, and I'm quite happily, if I can type, interacting with this Metasploit session and doing all the Metasploit usual things, right?
Nice.
Including get UID and sysinfo and all that stuff. So it was an interesting exercise because I got to learn not only that I could obfuscate executables significantly further, but that I also learned a lot more about how to detect the way Metasploit is actually creating these things. So
Very nice.
there is my tech segment, sir.
Thank you so much, Joff. With that, we're going to take a short break. Come back with our stories for this week, so stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.